I am the man who killed God. Not metaphorically, not symbolically. I looked divinity in the eyes and I pulled the trigger. They call me the Sorcerer Killer. They call me the man with zero cursed energy. They call me a monster. But before I became their nightmare, I was just a man the world forgot to fear, and that was their first mistake. I wasn't always empty. I mean, I was. Born into the Zenin clan with nothing. No cursed energy, no technique, no value. In a family of sorcerers, I was the genetic failure. The mistake. The one they whispered about in corners. I remember being 7 years old, watching my cousins manipulate cursed energy like breathing. They made it look effortless, natural, like they were born with a language I'd never be able to speak, and I stood there, hands trembling, trying to feel something, anything. But there was only emptiness. I used to think that emptiness was my weakness. I believed what they told me, that I was broken, that I was worthless, that in a world of jujutsu sorcerers, I was nothing. I accepted it. Not because I was weak, but because I didn't know any different yet. I thought the hierarchy was natural, that some people were born to rule, and others were born to disappear. I was so fucking naive. The day everything shattered wasn't dramatic. No epic battle, no grand revelation. It was a Tuesday. I was 12. They threw me into the disciplinary pit. You know what that is? A hole in the ground filled with cursed spirits. A punishment chamber for the failures. I remember the elder's face when he closed the door. Not anger, not hatred. Indifference, like I was already dead. Like my screaming wouldn't even register as noise. I spent 3 days down there. 3 days in complete darkness. 3 days with creatures trying to tear me apart. And you know what I realized? The cursed spirits weren't the real monsters. The real monsters were the ones who put me down there. The ones who smiled at family dinners. The ones who talked about honor and tradition. My body was covered in wounds. My throat was raw from screaming. My mind was fracturing. But something else was happening too. Something the Zenin clan didn't anticipate. I was adapting. My body, this worthless, cursed, energyless body, was learning. Every attack I survived made me faster. Every wound taught me where to strike. Every moment of terror sharpened my instincts into weapons. When they finally pulled me out, I wasn't the same person who went in. I looked at them with new eyes. And for the first time, they looked away first. After the pit, something broke inside me. Or maybe it finally fixed itself. I started asking questions I was supposed to ignore. Why was cursed energy considered superior? Because it was rare? Because tradition said so? Because people who had it needed to believe they were special? I watched the clan obsess over techniques, over bloodlines, over inherited power, and I saw the truth they were terrified to admit. They were slaves to genetics, born with power they didn't earn, worshipping accidents of birth, while I had to earn every single breath. Every technique I learned, I carved into my body through pain. Every instinct I developed came from survival. Every weapon I mastered required absolute precision, because I had no safety net, no cursed energy to fall back on, no inherited technique to save me, just flesh and bone and will. And somewhere in that realization, I found something they'd never have. Freedom. They were bound by their techniques, limited by their cursed energy pools, predictable because of their inherited abilities, but me? I was a blank slate, a zero in their equation, and in mathematics, zero can break everything. I started training differently, not to join them, but to hunt them. I studied sorcerers like a biologist studies insects. I learned their patterns, their arrogance, their assumptions. They all believed the same lie. That cursed energy made them untouchable, that someone without it couldn't possibly threaten them. That lie became my greatest weapon. I remember the first sorcerer I killed, a second-grade nobody, cocky because of his technique. He didn't even see me as a threat, not until my blade was through his throat, the look in his eyes. That moment when he realized cursed energy meant nothing against physics, against speed, against a man who had nothing to lose. I watched his technique fade, watched the light die, and I felt nothing. No guilt, no satisfaction, just confirmation. They weren't gods. They were just people with a genetic advantage, and advantages can be studied, exploited, destroyed. But here's where it gets complicated. Because hunting sorcerers wasn't about revenge, it was about proving something to myself. Every time I killed someone blessed by cursed energy, I was answering the question that haunted my childhood. Does power determine worth, or does survival? The Zenin clan said I was worthless because I had no cursed energy. But I kept surviving, kept winning, kept proving that their entire worldview was built on sand. And that created a war inside me. Part of me wanted validation, wanted them to see they were wrong, wanted them to acknowledge that I, the failure, had surpassed them all. But another part, a darker part, wanted them to die never understanding, wanted them to fade into irrelevance, wanted to erase their entire philosophy from existence. I became obsessed with the question, what makes someone strong? Is it the power you're born with, or the power you take? Is it destiny, or is it the refusal to accept destiny? I didn't have an answer. Still don't. But I had a hypothesis. True strength exists in the space between life and death, where one mistake means the end, where there's no cursed energy to save you, where it's just you and your will to continue. Sorcerers never lived in that space. They visited it occasionally, but I lived there every single day. Every fight was life or death. Every miscalculation was permanent. And in that constant proximity to death, I became something they couldn't categorize. Not a sorcerer, not a curse. Just a man who broke all their rules by refusing to play their game. There was a night, 3 years into my mercenary work. Contract killing, assassination, I was good at it. Maybe too good. I sat in a hotel room counting money, blood still on my hands. Not metaphorically, literally. And I looked in the mirror, really looked. The man staring back. I didn't recognize him. Not because I'd changed, but because I'd become exactly what they said I'd be. A weapon, a tool, a thing without cursed energy, without technique, without humanity. I'd spent so long proving I didn't need their power, that I'd forgotten to build anything beyond destruction. What was I fighting for? Survival? I'd already survived. Revenge? Against who? The entire world? Validation? From people whose opinions I claimed not to care about? I realized something horrible that night. I was still letting them define me. Every sorcerer I killed was another way of screaming, "See, I matter. I'm strong. You were wrong." But they couldn't hear me. Most of them were dead, and the ones who weren't didn't even know my name. I was the Sorcerer Killer, a title, a reputation, a boogeyman. But who was Toji? Who was I when I wasn't hunting? When I wasn't proving something? I didn't know. And for the first time since leaving the Zenin clan, I felt that same emptiness. Not the physical emptiness of no cursed energy, the spiritual emptiness of no purpose. I'd become so efficient at killing that I'd forgotten to build a life worth living. No connections, no future, no meaning beyond the next contract. I was free from the Zenin clan, but I'd built a new prison. One made of isolation, of violence, of proving a point no one was listening to anymore. That night I almost quit, almost walked away from everything, almost tried to be normal. But then the phone rang. Another contract, another target, another chance to feel that rush. That moment of perfect clarity when it's just me and the space between heartbeats. And I took it, because even empty purpose felt better than no purpose at all. I didn't find redemption. Let's be clear about that. I'm not a reformed man. I'm not a hero. I didn't suddenly discover the power of friendship or whatever bullshit story you're expecting. But I did find something. Acceptance. Not of the world, of myself. I stopped asking if I mattered. I stopped trying to prove my worth. I stopped measuring myself against sorcerers, against the clan, against fate. I realized something simple. I exist. That's enough. I don't need cursed energy to validate my existence. I don't need the Zenin clan to acknowledge my strength. I don't need the Jujutsu world to fear my name. I am Toji Fushiguro, born with nothing, given nothing, expected to be nothing. And I became something anyway. Not because it was destiny, not because I was special, but because I chose to. Every morning I wake up is a choice. Every breath is defiance. Every heartbeat is proof that their system, their hierarchy, their belief that cursed energy equals worth, is a lie. And that's enough. I don't need to kill every sorcerer. I don't need to destroy the Jujutsu world. I just need to exist, to survive, to be the living reminder that their rules aren't absolute. That thought, that simple, brutal acceptance, and changed everything. I stopped fighting against the world and started fighting for myself. After that realization, my entire approach shifted. I still took contracts, still killed sorcerers, still operated in the shadows. But it wasn't about proving anything anymore. It was about mastery, about perfecting my craft. I started treating every fight like art, every kill like a lesson. I studied my body's limits and broke through them. I analyzed cursed techniques with scientific precision. I turned my lack of cursed energy from a weakness into a signature. Because here's what I understood. Cursed energy has patterns. Sorcerers rely on it. They sense it, track it, predict movements based on it. But me? I'm invisible to that entire sensory system. I'm a blind spot in their radar, a ghost in their detection techniques. I move through their world like a shark through deep water. Silent, efficient, inevitable. I developed the heavenly restriction to its absolute peak. My physical abilities transcended normal human limits. My senses sharpened to supernatural levels. My reflexes operated faster than conscious thought. I became what the Zenin clan feared to admit was possible. Stronger than sorcerers, without being one. And I didn't do it through genetics, through luck, through inherited power. I did it through understanding one simple truth. Limitations breed innovation. The sorcerers had power handed to them. They never needed to think creatively, never needed to maximize every advantage, never needed to turn their weaknesses into weapons. But I did. Every single day, I learned to use cursed tools, weapons infused with cursed energy. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man with no cursed energy, wielding weapons made from it, using their own power against them. I became a paradox. The Sorcerer Killer who uses Jujutsu weapons. The man with heavenly restriction who operates in the cursed world. The genetic failure who surpassed the bloodline. I stopped caring about the contradictions, because contradictions are only problems if you're trying to fit into a system. I wasn't. I was my own system. When I accepted a contract on the Star Plasma vessel, I knew it would be different. This wasn't some random sorcerer. This was protected by the strongest, the absolute peak of Jujutsu society, the ones who represented everything I'd been fighting against. And I smiled, because for the first time, I wasn't fighting to prove anything. I was fighting because I could. Every step of that plan was calculated, not with arrogance, with certainty. I knew their patrol patterns, knew their techniques, knew their psychology. I knew that power makes you comfortable, and comfort makes you predictable. I walked into that mission like a surgeon walking into an operating room. No wasted movement, no unnecessary emotion, just precision. When I fought them, it wasn't personal. It wasn't revenge. It was a demonstration of what happens when absolute focus meets absolute skill. They had cursed energy. I had preparation. They had techniques. I had adaptability. They had confidence. I had nothing to lose. And in that equation, I was always going to win. The moment I completed that contract, I didn't feel victorious. I felt complete. Like I'd finally answered the question that drove me. Can a man with nothing surpass those with everything? Yes, if he's willing to sacrifice everything else. Listen to me. If you're watching this, if you feel like you were born with nothing, like the world gave everyone else advantages you'll never have, Like you're starting a race where everyone else is already at the finish line. Good. That anger, that resentment, that feeling of unfairness, use it. Don't let anyone tell you that inherited advantages are the same as earned strength. They're not. Someone born with talent hasn't been tested. Someone handed power hasn't been forged. Someone given everything from birth doesn't know what they're actually capable of. But you're going to have to earn every single inch. And that's going to make you dangerous. Because while they're relaxing in their comfort, you're going to be sharpening yourself into a blade. I'm not going to lie to you. It's not fair. It's not easy. It's going to hurt. You're going to want to quit. You're going to hate the people who had it easier. You're going to scream at a universe that seems designed to break you. But here's the truth they don't want you to know. The system only works if you believe in it. The hierarchy only exists if you acknowledge it. The limitations only apply if you accept them. I was born into a clan of sorcerers with zero cursed energy. According to their rules, I was worthless. According to their hierarchy, I was at the bottom. According to their system, I shouldn't exist. But I'm still here, and they're not. Not because I was blessed, not because I was chosen, but because I refused. Refused to accept their judgment. Refused to believe their lies. Refused to die when they expected me to. You don't need their validation. You don't need their approval. You don't need their system to acknowledge you. You just need to survive. And survival is the ultimate rebellion. I am Toji Fushiguro, the man born with nothing in a world that values everything. The Sorcerer Killer who proved that cursed energy isn't destiny. The genetic failure who surpassed the bloodline. I don't expect you to admire me. I don't expect you to agree with my methods. I don't expect you to think I'm a good person. I'm not. But I am proof. Proof that the system lies. Proof that hierarchies are illusions. Proof that someone born with nothing can become the thing everything fears. The Zenin clan threw me away. The Jujutsu world ignored me. Fate seemed to write me off before I began. But I'm still here. Not because I was destined for greatness, but because I refused to accept the script they wrote for me. I became my own author, my own architect, my own god. And if you're standing at the bottom right now, looking up at everyone who seems to have it easier, remember this: the view from the bottom is the clearest. You can see exactly who's standing on your back. You can see exactly how the system works. You can see exactly what needs to be destroyed. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. They will tell you to accept your place, to be grateful for scraps, to worship their advantages as divine. Don't. Sharpen yourself. Study them. Wait for your moment. And when it comes, don't hesitate. Because the world doesn't reward fairness. It rewards those who refuse to die. I am the man who killed God, not because I was stronger, but because I understood something God didn't. Divinity is just another word for arrogance. And arrogance is just another weakness to exploit. Remember my name, Toji Fushiguro, the man who proved that zero can destroy infinity.